Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Mongooli Show. Today, we're going over 20 of my favorite movies. It's not necessarily my top 20, but just ones that are going to give you a really good sense of who I am. And I tried not to double up on like a whole bunch from the same director or the same actors or anything like that, but you'll get a sense of who I am if you watch this episode. Now, this is only the clip that is the top 20. If you want to see the full episode, you'll have to head over to twitch.tv/The Mongooli Show, hit that follow button, and watch it live on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. The highlights from that will be on this channel, as well as we do like trailer reactions. I have a game show. We've got top 5 lists, stuff like that. That'll all be here on this channel. If you want to catch it live, head over to twitch.tv/The Mongooli Show. Enjoy the video, hit the like button, hit subscribe so you see more great stuff, and we'll catch you next time, or we'll see you live on Thursday nights. Cheers, everybody.
Okay, so your top 20 list.
Okay, so it's a lie. It is not a top 20. I have 20 movies.
Okay.
Apparently, I went off that screen. 1 second. So we kind of went back and forth a little bit when we were talking about this. It's not going to be, first off, in order, because, I mean, it's tough enough just figuring out your top 20. But putting them in order, being like, this one goes above this one, I feel like it would just change daily. Like, there's no way. I'm going to say the top 10 are probably the top 10, but again, in whatever order you want. And then the bottom 10 is going to be more... How do I word
So I'm
it?
gonna judge
like
you.
movies that like I would highly recommend, or movies that like if you want to get to know me, this is my style, more so than like this exact movie is number 11 on my list, period. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because like we were wanting to do this, just trying to like get a better feel for each other's taste in movies.
Right.
So that's kind of where I went with
I'm going to
this.
judge you hardcore on this. I'm going to be giving you some quick thumbs ups and thumbs downs if I think that these should be anywhere near a top 20.
Okay. I'm so excited and terrified at the exact same time. Sen Raven, the list is a lie. You're not wrong.
What's up, Sen?
Looking at Zac Efron, Taylor Shelley is my number 2 favorite movie. Step Up is my favorite. For people who love movies, I would also...
Cinephiles is good, Elder Jim.
I love the Cinephiles podcast. I listen to that all the time. In fact, I sent the Citizen Kane one to you. Did you get a chance to listen to that at all, or...?
Yes, I started some of it, but then I was like, I'm just going to watch the movie. I don't want them to spoil anything. They took a long time getting going, and I was glad because the movie took me a long time to get through. I had to rent it twice from YouTube. I was kind of upset about that.
That's totally fair. It is. They do go really in depth, and it is better if you've seen the movie ahead of time, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
They do an awful job of making me want to rewatch movies I didn't think I wanted to rewatch. You know what I mean? Like, I saw that before. It's good. I'll listen to them, and then like halfway through the box, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go watch it again. All right. Anyways, stalling. So as I said, I'm going to go through my 11 through 20. These are not in any order, and these are not necessarily... They're almost more conversation starters to get to know who I am, right? So we'll just go with that.
All right. Let's go.
So for number 20, I put Star Wars. I did not put any specific Star Wars. I just put Star Wars. Now, when I mean that, obviously, the original trilogy being like a person who grew up in the 80s, the original trilogy was all we had for a very, very long time. I couldn't tell you when I first saw Star Wars. It's just ingrained in my DNA. You know what I mean? Like that original trilogy.
I think Star Wars has a place here. I don't know if you can pick one over the other. A lot of people like Empire. A lot of people like Return of the Jedi. Some people even think that A New Hope is the way to go. Most agree that the original 3 are the ones that belong at the epitome of anybody's list, right?
Yeah. Now I will say, and I might lose some people on this one. In fact, I will lose people on this one. The original trilogy are, I think, some of the best made and best story-wise. But I've also seen them so much that I'm kind of like, I don't really want to watch these again. Like, unless I'm showing them to somebody, I wouldn't just sit down on a Friday night.
Right.
If I was to
seen
sit
them so many times, I don't want to see them either. But what I do love is when other things make a Star Wars rendition. I just watched Phineas and Ferb, the Star Wars edition, with my kids. I was so happy with that cartoon to watch something. And it was cool because Phineas and Ferb play new characters and they're going along behind the scenes as the first trilogy, and even some of the other, there's some allusions to the other movies as well, and they're behind the scenes doing their story, and they keep bumping into Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, and it was amazing. So I really like when they do that. Of course, you've got like, what is it, Robot Chicken has one, you've got a Family Guy one, you've got tons of those. I love when they do that.
Yeah. So, if I was to sit and watch a Star Wars movie right now, Force Awakens is, I think, probably the one that I find the most enjoyable. And really? I know everybody's going to be like, oh, it's just A New Hope over again. Yeah, but A New Hope is 40 years old. This one's, like, fun. It's more interesting. I don't know. I really like that one. Call me crazy. I'm not saying it's the best made. I'm not saying it's the best made.
There were too many plot holes in it. I didn't like the way that some people just suddenly adapted to the Force and were completely badass out of nowhere. It just felt like they needed a few more montages of training sequences at least. Something to happen there. That kind of bothered me. I did feel like it was a repeat and they just turned the volume up on it, you know? So I understand that. My favorite was, and this is probably not a popular choice either, was the Rebel one where they end up, and spoiler here, they end up all dying at the end. Yeah. Rogue One, thank you. Yeah, that was one of my favorite of the newer releases. I felt that one had great character development as well. Just a story that I was invested in those people. I made a connection with those people, and it felt like a real struggle.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, we're probably spending way too much time on each of these, right?
It's gonna go slow, that's for sure. That's why we're like doing one at a time.
I can be up all night long, Dan. I can be up all night long if you want. I got the whole rest of the evening if you want to go.
All right, fair enough. A 19. I'm gonna just number them as if it matters. The movie called Whiplash. This stars J.K. Simmons and Miles Teller. Yeah.
Fantastic.
All right, we found one.
Top 20. I don't know if it's a top 20 for me, but I think that's a fantastic choice, and I'm not going to discredit it for you.
As I said, this 10 is more of a, if you want to get to know me kind of a 10, right? So like this is the kind of movie I really, really like. It's not a sports movie per se, but it kind of has that sports movie vibe where it's all building up towards that thing, and like that last performance is just like you're riding on it so much. The first time I saw this movie, I was like physically exhausted by the end of it. Like actually like unpeeling my hands from my seat. I'm just like, how did a movie about jazz get to me that much? But it does. It works so well.
And it's a slow build, but by the end of it, the intensity with these characters, the passion and the hatred for them, I mean, it was amazing. That was an incredible movie, and I thought it showcased some of those actors like I'd never seen before. A whole new level of respect for those two guys.
Yeah, for sure. Next up on the list, and this is an older one that I remember watching late high school, and then for quite some time afterwards, is SLC Punk. This one stars Matthew Lillard. Is probably the only cast member that you'd ever hear of.
Yep. I remember SLC Punk. I'm not a fan of this one. I know a lot of people are. I didn't. It just wasn't for me, I think.
Nope, that's totally fair. What you'll discover is I really like dialogue. I'm a huge fan of dialogue. So you're going to see a lot of, like, I didn't put a ton of Aaron Sorkin on here because I didn't want to be repetitive. But, like, theoretically, if I was to actually do it, you probably would. I really like fourth wall breaking, like where people talk to the camera or like is dictation. And I really like really small stories where like they take place in like one room or like one setting. Now, this one doesn't fit that last one, but it fits the first two pretty well. And I mean, I've been a huge like punk fan for quite some time, or at least pop punk or whatnot. So I really enjoyed this movie. I haven't seen it in a little while, but I watched it so much when I was, 18 to 27-ish that it kind of makes it onto the list.
I can't begrudge you this choice. I think it's a very decent choice. Just wasn't for me. I think I've watched that movie twice, in fact, but I haven't seen it in a very long time.
I don't imagine it's one that's going to get better with age. I feel like you have to watch this at the right time in your life.
I think so too. That came out while I was going through my punk phase, and it kind of ended my punk phase for me because it was harder than I was, you know? And I was like, okay, I'm out of my league on this one. I'm going to go on to the next phase of my life.
Well, like the last scene is him just like, well, what? Oh, after all, I guess I'm just a stupid poser or something like that. And I realize I'm sitting here talking about SLC Punk in my like golf polo shirt from work earlier. I'm like, I was going through my punk phase. Podcast. Next up is another musical movie. I don't think I've got that many musicals on here. It's an indie movie from England, and it's one that I had to pick up on digital because I could not find it anywhere. Sorry, I had to pick it up on physical because I couldn't find it anywhere. It's called Sing Street. It's a little indie movie from like 5-6 years ago. And what the story is these, I'm going to say high school kids, but like young high school, maybe even like that, whatever that's called, junior high, whatever that in between is. And the main guy just moved to a new school, not really getting along with anybody, meets a girl, falls head over heels for her, but doesn't have any way to talk to her or anything like that. Decides to start up a band and use music to try and woo her.
Okay.
So his older brother's kind of giving him like
coming of age story or no?
Kind of. It's his brother's giving him like his old records. So like this kid's going through a musical education, but he's kind of starting with like Duran Duran and stuff like that. So he makes a band, actually has a really, really good soundtrack, but the soundtrack's kind of like all these different like 80s sounding bands, 80s sounding styles. I've actually got a couple of songs on my actual playlist that I listen to daily. Like the music is so good. The story is really fun. They really go all in. Like they make music videos, but they feel like music videos, except for one. One is actually like a full blown like High School Musical kind of situation. But other than that, they feel like actual music videos and stuff like that. Like it doesn't feel like too over the top. Really, really fun movie though. Just a sweet story. I really, really like this one.
Okay, I'll put it on my list. I'll have to check it out. I'm watching the trailer here. I don't know if it's something I would super get into. I'm not a huge fan of musicals. It may not woo me, but I'll give it a shot. I'll give it the old 30-minute try and see where it goes.
Next one on the list, I think is the only MCU one on the list, and that's Captain America: Civil War. This is probably my favorite of the MCU. I love the introduction. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and I think they did him perfectly in this one by just having him be a little part of it instead of focusing on him. They just completely skipped his origin story, anything like that. He just already is Spider-Man, moving on. I love the way that they all interacted with each other. The airport scene, like we've seen the Avengers all together since the first Avengers movie. But the airport scene was like something ripped right out of a comic book, like just splash page after splash page, like such an incredibly fun movie. Actually, I don't know how intelligent the plot is, but it doesn't fall apart. Let's put it that way. Like it all makes sense enough. I think this one's absolutely phenomenal, and it's probably one of the more fun ones to go back. I know most people will say Captain America: Winter Soldier is their favorite. I would put this one on before I'd put that one on if I'm just looking for a fun movie. Next up, JB Holmes already talked about it, or at least mentioned it, is Tombstone. I haven't seen Tombstone in a little while, but I watched Tombstone religiously in high school. I absolutely adored this movie. I want to go back to it. I picked it up on Blu-ray recently, but haven't even opened it yet. I am maybe the tiniest bit terrified that it won't hold up to my memory because of how much I love it. But I'm also very excited to go over it again because it's been a long time. I know the mustaches are going to be horrendous for the first 5 minutes until you kind of get used to them. But yeah, I really like this one.
So Tombstone was really good. There's a Western with Morgan Freeman that came out not too long ago, and I the name is slipping my memory. I'm trying to find it. That I actually kind of liked a little bit better. It's when they're all kind of, these guys are kind of so old, they're kind of going out for one last hurrah to, save the city that's under oppression. It's a general Western theme, and I kind of like that better. I thought Tombstone was great. I mean, Val Kilmer, I'll be your Huckleberry. I got two guns, one for the each of you. These are lines I will never forget. I think it's a great movie if you're into Unforgiven. Thank you, Sen Raven.
I thought you said something about that recently.
I think Tombstone is an excellent choice if you're into westerns. It's really good.
Okay. Yeah, I must have misheard you. I thought you said there was a Morgan Freeman western that just came out recently, and I was like, oh, I know he's in Unforgiven, but that was like 95 or something.
No, I liked Unforgiven as it was a little bit different take on some others. And then other westerns that were great too. We have the series that I believe they're on Paramount, the 1927 and 1827. I might have the year number wrong, but if you know those movies, you know what I'm talking about. I'm terrible with those numbers, but I really like those series for westerns.
Are those the
310
TV
to
show?
Yuma, what I didn't like 310 to Yuma, son.
Are you talking about the TV shows that are like Yellowstone?
Yes, the
Okay.
Yellowstone spin-offs, yes.
1883, I think is one.
I haven't gotten through Yellowstone. I got through the first couple of episodes of Yellowstone. I was like, it's okay. People tell me hang in there and it gets really good. And
Okay.
so I'll probably circle back around to it. But yeah, the other ones blew me away as far as Westerns go. I was so impressed with that. When they're, traveling west from, in fact, they're traveling west from Dallas, Texas, and trying to make it to Oregon. So I'm from Oregon. I now live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so that was, yeah. Oh, Hell on Wheels, another good one, Daddy Rourke. I enjoyed that as well. But I think Tombstone is an excellent choice. There's nothing wrong with that one for your list.
Yep. All right. Next up is, I don't have the year, but the Alfred Hitchcock classic Rear Window. This is maybe one of my favorites of his. It's, as I said, I like contained movies, and this is like the epitome of a contained movie. So James Stewart is a photographer for, I'm going to say National Geographic, but I'm sure that's not right. So he's used to traveling all over the world, going to like really dangerous locations to get the best photo that he can possibly get. He's recently broken his leg and is stuck in his apartment on a very hot summer and can't really do anything. He kind of is living in this apartment where he can kind of see like a courtyard and like into other people's apartments. And he's got like, he's a photographer, so he's got this like high powered camera so he can really zoom in if he has to. And he kind of starts going, I don't want to say crazy, but like stir crazy, I guess.
Okay.
And one of the people across the way from him, like he's got names for all of his different, the people he can see, and like he's kind of keeping up with their lives because like this is 1950 something. There's not really good television or anything like that. He can't
hear them, but he can see them.
He can hear a little bit because it's a tight little courtyard, right? So things echo. Everybody's got their windows open because of how hot it is. Some of the couples are sleeping on their balconies just to try and like cool down and whatnot. But one of the people gets in a fight with his wife. You can kind of hear something, and then you don't see his wife anymore. And so he starts going like, well, what did this guy kill his wife? Like, am I the only witness or potential witness to what's going on here? And I won't go any further than that, but to say, it's Alfred Hitchcock, so you know it's going to be suspenseful. It's incredibly well done. It is very dialogue heavy, and it is entirely in one location. Like everything is on this one studio lot, right? Like whether he's in his apartment or if anybody goes outside the apartment, it's all in this like tiny little area. So I know that really bothers some people. I love it. I think this movie is absolutely fantastic.
I watched that movie where Ryan Reynolds was in a coffin the entire movie and
Buried?
enjoyed it. Like
Buried's great.
Like I can deal with that. I think that's fine, and I love dialogue too. So this is really piquing my interest. I'm putting a star by it. I can't believe I've never even heard of this because I'm a pretty good Hitchcock fan, and I just completely missed this one.
I'm gonna throw another one at you really quickly. Then, have you ever seen Rope? It's
No.
not on my 20, but it's another Alfred Hitchcock one. It's almost more of a play.
Yeah.
But it's a take on, what is it? The Telltale Heart. So it's these two guys who killed a friend of theirs and are hosting a dinner party. And I want to say the body is in like a Foot Locker or something in the apartment that they are all sitting in. So the entire movie takes place in this little area. And they're trying, like, one of them is freaking out and like, we got to get out of here. We got to kick all these people out so we can get rid of this body. And the other guy's like, it's fine. You don't worry about it. It's a really good one as well. I really enjoyed that one. Not on my 20, but just like, if you've not heard of it.
All right, I'm going to write that down too. That sounds interesting.
Next up is the Martin Scorsese classic, Goodfellas.
Oh, yeah. Amazing. Yes, amazing piece.
Yeah. It was kind of, now I'm trying to stick to just like one of each director that I really like. So it was kind of between this one and Wolf on Wall Street.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure Goodfellas is just the better movie. Wolf on Wall Street's very, very rewatchable. Is the better
movie. I appreciate Wolf on Wall Street as well. But I think you're right in picking the Goodfellas. I think that's fantastic. You know, that came out, there was Casino was another good one that I really enjoyed too. So
I didn't like Casino as much as Goodfellas. Like it's good.
Goodfellas is the one. That's the pick right there. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I don't think this is okay. So the next one I'm going to do is a Christopher Nolan, I don't think this is his best movie, but this is the most Dan of his movies, if that makes any sense.
All right.
I like Interstellar way more than most people do.
Oh, no, you don't.
Yes, I do.
Interstellar's way high on my list, man.
Really? Oh, this one's the opposite way.
I just rewatched it again for probably the 17th time. I am such a fan of Interstellar.
Oh,
I'm a
good.
big sci-fi nerd. I love hard sci-fi. I love when people get really, really accurate with their science in their movies, and this is probably the most scientifically accurate movie that was ever made. I mean, they had trouble filming this. You know some of the backstory with this, right? Like, what's his name? Kip Thorne was involved in this movie, and they were trying really hard to get like all the gravitational effects and then the black holes and stuff. Like they designed that black hole, which is now featured in a lot of movies. Like if you ever feature a black hole in your movie, you're using the interstellar black hole now because it's so accurate and amazingly beautiful. Oh my God, go ahead. I don't want to steal this from you. This is your movie, but man, I love that movie too. I'm so glad you said Interstellar.
I was so nervous because you kind of just did this like wind up, like, oh no. I was like, oh crap, he's got like this movie's terrible. And just like, I thought you were going to rip into me for a second there. I love this movie so much. I love the science behind it. As you were saying, I think some of the concepts on it are quite frankly beyond my understanding, but I still really enjoy them. For instance, I can't quite wrap my head around how time would pass differently on a planet than it would above the planet. I understand it. I've had it explained to me. I get it. It just doesn't quite click in my brain. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's one of those things where like you can be afraid of something even though you know it's safe, but it's still like something in your brain's like, no, you should be afraid right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those kind of situations. Anyways, I think this movie is visually stunning. I think it's incredibly acted. I don't have a problem with the ending, even though I know a lot of people do. It's sci-fi, man. Like, sci-fi is willing to take different turns. One of the biggest problems you will ever get with me, like one of my major pet peeves with movies is I will go along with you on any ride. I will take whatever you give me and be like, cool, that's what we're going with. That is the truth of this movie. I will go with it until you break your own rules. That will drive me insane. Like, if you're going to tell me that, like, you can go back in time in a DeLorean, cool, we can go back in time in a DeLorean. No issue whatsoever. But as soon as you break that rule, I'm out. Like, that just infuriates me.
Time travel movies have a tendency to kind of explain the rules that they're going to play by in this movie. And as long as you stick to those rules, I'm on board.
Yeah.
But as soon, like you said, as soon as you break your own rules, I'm sorry, I'm upset now because there's so many different ways that you can go with a time travel movie, and Interstellar rides that line very fine. And I mean, it's hard. Like, the science behind it is so deep and it's hard to follow. So basically, it gets to a point where I'm not smart enough to understand if they're breaking the rules or not. Is kind of where it gets to, and I'm okay with that because I don't know if they're breaking their rules or not.
I saw an interview with seriously, I need to prepare for this. The African-American scientist, Neil deGrasse Tyson. I saw an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson where he was going over this movie and he's like, this is accurate, this is accurate, this is accurate, this is accurate, like just praising the movie. And they're like, well, what about the last scene with like the bookshelf and stuff? He's like, nobody's ever been inside a black hole. How do you know what happens in there? And it's just like, okay, fair enough. Like, I guess that makes sense.
They basically reach a point where we just don't know. Like, you can't prove that it's wrong, but you can't prove it's right either. So, Daddy
Rourke's Sandra Bullock is in Gravity. That is not the one we're talking about here. And yes, it is Matthew McConaughey. I didn't love Gravity nearly as much.
It's not making my top 20 list, but I enjoyed it for its special effects, and I enjoyed it for the fact that they made it silent in space. I hate when you hear starships whooshing by. That drives me insane.
Tell me how you feel about X-Men 97 when you finish it. Just gonna throw that out there and walk away.
So in Interstellar, there's a lot of times when you don't get to see visually what's happening. You're inside the spaceship, or you're looking out of the window of the spaceship, and you don't get to see what's going on. And I found it really troublesome at first, until after a while you kind of get the feel for this and you realize they don't want you to see these great big special effects until they need the special effects, like the black hole, like the tsunami, you know, like the robot running through the water, those kind of things. They saved all of their special effect budget for the things that you really need to be blown away by, or, you know, at the end and the bookshelf scene inside the black hole and things like that. That's where they saved their budget for. And I totally appreciated that they didn't bother showing you a spaceship launching off from the surface of the Earth. I really kind of thought that was kind of a cool way to go about that. Not to mention the spaceship designs and everything being so realistic. That was kind of cool.
So the other thing that I'll just touch on with this one before we move on is not only is the science fiction like just on par, like I just absolutely love it. It's out there, but it takes itself seriously, which I really, really enjoy. But it's also an incredibly emotional movie, which is like the other half of why I say this is a better Dan movie than it is necessarily an incredibly well-made movie. Now, you're also a father. I'm a father of daughters. Like the scene where he is watching like 60 years of videotapes roll in and he's just losing it. Like I might start crying just talking about it. Like it is such an emotionally hard scene to watch. And then you get to the end of the movie where his daughter is now like twice as old as he is. And he's like, I just have to say, like, I whatever, I can't mess I'm gonna mess the dialogue up, but he's like, he wants to spend time with her, and she's like, no, I had my life. You weren't a part of it. This is my family. Go find your family. Like, I'm glad you're alive. Thank you for saving humanity. Go away. This is my family now. Like, you weren't there for me ever. And it's just like
Matthew McConaughey in that scene when he sits in that seat and watches that playback was phenomenal.
Yeah.
That was so impressive, so heart-wrenching to watch him go through that. I was absolutely blown away by that scene. I mean, I would say it stole the show, but that entire movie was really impressive to me. So, yeah.
And even like the Matt Damon cameo, which is just hilarious that again, we had to go save Matt Damon from something. But the fact that like Matt Damon is like, I just need to get off this planet. I'm sorry that I doomed humanity. I just need to not die here on this frozen waste by myself. Is in a weird way, and maybe this says awful things about me, like so relatable. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, yeah, I wouldn't want to die alone on a planet by myself where that sounds awful. But
it was a real human being dealing with real human emotions. Like they didn't pull any punches in that movie. You know, you had people who were trying to be scientists, but also experienced emotion. Somebody just followed me. I'm not even streaming.
That's been happening to me all week. That's funny though. It's just like, why is there? That's not my. That's not my notification.
To be also watching Dan. Thanks for the follow.
Okay. I guess I will say probably the better movie from him would be either Memento or The Prestige. But Interstellar is more of a Dan pick, so we'll just drop that and move on.
Okay, I did enjoy both of those titles as well.
I love random follows. And the last one for this list that's not necessarily my favorite movies of all time, but like definitely ones that I want to talk about, comes from I'm gonna say my favorite director, but when I say that, what I actually mean is like one of my favorite people on the planet who just happens to be a director. I don't think he is a great director. I just think that I really enjoy everything he does. And that's Kevin Smith, and this movie is Dogma. Now, I understand there's going to be a huge line in the sand drawn there for some people on this one because it obviously touches on a lot of religious things and it pokes fun at or whatnot. But I first discovered Clerks like 3 days before I watched Dogma. Like a friend of mine at the time introduced me to Clerks and Akira in our communications class. When we were supposed to be editing and actually working on projects. And I went from there to the video store, and we live in a small town, so we didn't have a whole lot of selection. Dogma had just come out fairly recently, and I was like, hey, that's the same guy. I'm going to watch that. And I probably watched it like 6 or 7 times in that 1-2 day rental span. And I became essentially like a Jehovah's Witness for this movie. Like I would have friends over be like, have you heard the good word of Dogma? You need to come over and watch this movie. And like, I'm not even kidding. I did that to a couple people and they're just looking at me like, why are we watching this? I'm like, because it's amazing. What are you talking about? I grew up in a very religious family. So the fact that he was making fun of, but in questioning, but from a respectful position. You know what I mean? Like he was never like, these people are idiots. Well, he kind of is, I guess. But
Oh, I think there were some harsh tones with it, but I think it was justified. I think the writing in it was strong enough that he could throw those punches and take those shots, and it was acceptable. I think that they were simply asking questions that needed to be asked and pointing at things that needed to be pointed at, and they
Yeah.
weren't afraid to do it, and that's why I do appreciate that movie. It wasn't as stellar a hit for me as other things, but I too was raised in a very strongly religious family. In fact, I was very religious myself. I built churches in Tijuana and did
Oh,
youth
wow.
ministry in Fresno, and I led men's youth groups all throughout. And now I'm an atheist. That's the short story. So I appreciate the movie for where it went and what it did and the questions that it asked, because in that time it felt like you weren't allowed to ask some of those questions, and they just said, "Screw it, we're gonna do this," you know.
Yeah.
And they made an entertaining film along the way.
Absolutely. I think I'm a huge fan well, of a bunch of people in this movie, to be perfectly honest. Kevin Smith, I'm a huge fan of. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, I absolutely love, especially when they're in movies together, especially when they're buddies in movies together. And I think this is maybe not their best performance, but the best duo. I just love watching the two of them interacting for this movie. I think it's so much fun. I think Clerks is obviously like the Kevin Smith darling, like the one that people talk about. Like it's the indie
Right.
classic. It's not nearly as much fun to rewatch, but I love the story behind it, like the story of how it got made and the fact that he like kind of just took his credit cards out and bet on himself, and it ended up paying off. Like he ended up making a career for himself just by like, no, I just want to make a movie with my friends, and has done pretty well for himself, all things considered, just by following that script. But Dogma is one that it like speaks to me and that I just enjoy so much more. And just fun little fact, did you know that when this movie came out, there were protesters for this movie? And he actually made a sign and went and joined the protesters and actually is on the news as protesting his own movie.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's funny though. Doesn't surprise me at all.
There's a funny little clip of it. It's great.
I have a love-hate relationship with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck.
Okay.
I've kind of gone back and forth with them for a variety of reasons. I'm probably a little more excited about Matt Damon right now than I am with Ben Affleck. But I do have to say, Jay Alexander, I thought that Matt Damon had a great role in Team America World Police. That was when I was hating on him, and they had that little tiny skit of Matt Damon, and I loved that little bit. So I go back and forth. Like I said, Dogma wasn't anything super huge for me, but again, I appreciate this, and I totally can respect that this is something that you think is worth mentioning.
I had to mention a Kevin Smith, and it's my favorite of the Kevin Smiths. So like,
I'm waiting to give something of yours a solid thumbs down, and I can't so far. I either haven't seen it or I think it's worthy of it.
well, that's fair. We can talk about Citizen Kane if you want, and then we can you can bring out the rage a little bit.
I think we'll get there. Let's save that because
All right.
I've got questions about that, so we'll get there.
Totally fair. Take everything Jay Alexander says with a grain of salt. Just for the record, I know him in real life, and
Yeah.
he's been trolling on YouTube for a while now, and I was ignoring him, so now he's over on Twitch.
Hey, I liked Tenet. He mentions Tenet in here. Obviously not Nolan's best movie.
He's
but
doing that to bug me.
That was the first time travel movie I've seen in a very long time that I felt was new and fresh and got me thinking, right? I don't know if it even made any sense, but it was different, and I appreciate that. It wasn't the same time travel story over and over.
For sure. I enjoy Tenet well enough as a pseudo James Bond movie, but there's so many things about it where I'm like, this, I don't know. Anyways.
Right.
All right, so now we're going to get into the actual 10. One of this is a cheat, but other than that, it's pretty accurate, I think, unless I'm totally blanking on something, but here we go. And no order, because that would be way too hard for me to do.
But this is top 10.
These are actual, like, top 10 movies. So we're going to start
in no
off
particular order, but they're top 10. Okay.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I always want to call it the Quest for the Holy Grail, I think it's just Holy Grail. This is one of those movies that I watched very young and absolutely changed my sense of humor. Like, if I had to point to things that made me who I am, like, not made me who I am, but like forged my sense of humor, it would be like The Simpsons, early Simpsons, Monty Python, and probably like Princess Bride. Which, spoilers, is also going to make it on this list. You're looking at me like you really want to fight me on this one. This is maybe the first real big thumbs down.
I don't know. I know that a lot of people really love Monty Python and the Holy Grail, but for me, it was anecdotal.
Fair.
It just, I laughed at it. I see why other people might really get into it, but I do have trouble sometimes with older movies, going back to them and seeing them, and I go, okay, I see why people liked this, but for me, I think this is something that you should probably watch. If you're a movie aficionado and you haven't seen Holy Grail, definitely want to check it out and see why people talk about it. But for me, it's not going to make a top 20 list for me.
Totally fair. And it's not necessarily one that I would watch like tomorrow, but I've seen it enough and it kind of forged me, so it is what it is.
Which now, this is the one, 'Tis But a Scratch, right? That's
correct.
the Holy Grail?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the one, Life of Brian? What's that one?
That's the one where Brian is born in like the stall next to Jesus, and it's kind of like following the Jesus story.
That's right, yeah. Okay.
I saw that one like a couple of years ago. So I watched Monty Python when I was, or Holy Grail, I should say, when I was like 8, and I watched it a whole bunch since then. I watched Life of Brian for the first time like 2 years ago, and it was kind of the same thing where I'm like, oh, I get it, okay, but it didn't do anything for me.
Right.
The next one is a cheat because it's 2 movies, but it's the same franchise, and honestly, tomorrow it might be different. You can see it in the background there. It's Raiders of the Lost Ark or Last Crusade. These are...
How recently have you seen the Indiana Jones trilogy and the 4th movie?
So Jason Alexander, myself, and another guy we're working towards doing a movie podcast kind of right before COVID hit, where we were going to go back through and like rate franchises, and Indiana Jones was the first franchise that we decided to do. So that was probably the last time I saw all 4 of them in fairly close succession, but I've seen Raiders since then with my daughters.
Okay.
So not horrendously long ago. I'm aware that there is some cheese factor here, but I don't care. Like, this is such a part of my childhood. It's such a great movie. It's so much fun. There's still parts of it that I thoroughly find funny and will go back to. I have not seen the 5th one yet. I'm terrified to, because I want it to be good and I know that it won't be. I don't like Temple of Doom all that much, and I don't care for Crystal Skull either, but Raiders of the Lost Ark and Last Crusade might be perfect. Well, I mean, not perfect is a bit strong, but like perfect for me. Like, they're just so much fun. The music is absolutely amazing. Like, I can remember, like, this is like Star Wars, right? Where I couldn't tell you the first time that I watched them because they were just ingrained in me. But like, I can remember like running around the house or whatnot, just like, it's just, I don't know. I really, really enjoy these movies.
So my only problem with this being on your top 10 list is that you didn't include the Temple of Doom. I think all 3 belong just as avidly as I would say Star Wars, right? I would say Indiana Jones. The only thing is that like with Star Wars, there's some newer movies that have upset a lot of people in the way that they came out and the way that they were produced. I think 4 and 5, I don't even like. If you can get through the 4th movie, then you can get through the 5th movie, right? Dial of Destiny is to me was just another Crystal Skull. I think that they were just really leaning into Harrison Ford being old. I feel like the Crystal Skull, that they were trying to set up Shia LaBeouf to take over the role, and the movie sucked. You know, the movie sucked. And then nobody wanted Shia LaBeouf to take over the role. And so then they just put out the 5th movie. And it was like, and all that was like a nod to people who liked Indiana Jones and are entering their twilight years or something. Like, it was just all about getting old. I did not like 4 and 5, obviously. No. However, I think that 1, 2, and 3, I'm not going to give you a thumbs down for them being on your list. But I do think that the Temple of Doom has just as much merit as the others. Personally, I thought The Last Crusade was the best one myself. That's my favorite with Sean Connery. I thought that was the best.
I think Last Crusade is the most fun. I think Raiders is the better movie, so that's why they kind of flip-flop there. I don't like Temple of Doom, so that's why it's not on the list. And the thing I'm going to fight back on is... Okay, so Raiders, Crusade, and even... Not Dial of Destiny, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull... At least Indiana Jones, and I've heard the Big Bang thing, don't come at me with that. He's trying to achieve something. He's working towards something. He has a goal, he has an end, like he's working on something, right? You get to see him trying to figure puzzles out. Temple of
Right.
Doom, he literally just stumbles from one room to the next. He has no goal. He has nothing that he's working towards. He just kind of like, oh, there's a diamond in the opening bar. I'm going to try and grab that. No? Okay, we get thrown in plane. Oh, we get thrown out of the plane. We go into India. Like, they literally stumble.
To start the movie. They fall out of a plane and land in this village, and the movie just kind of goes from there. I agree
Things
with
happen
you on
to
that.
him. He is not doing anything.
Right.
I don't know. It doesn't do it for me.
It does make it a bit unbelievable because
the whole franchise is unbelievable.
it felt so weird that all this amazing stuff keeps occurring to him and he's so perfectly capable to navigate through it. That was a bit weird. So I can understand that. I just felt that there were such iconic moments in that movie that resonated throughout cinema afterwards that I feel that deserves a place on the podium with the other two. I mean, him pulling, having the heart pulled out in the voodoo scene or whatever, the guy, them lowering her down in the cage and she's, trying to like blow out the lava because she's trying to melt, there's just interesting stuff in there. And then of course you got the kid who is now in Loki and featured in so many movies that came back around. He was in Goonies. I forget the kid's name.
I'm going to mess it up, but
or something. He was Slick Shoes in the Goonies. I forget his name, but he was great in that movie.
He was neither of those things. He was Data in the Goonies, and he's short round here.
For having the Slick Shoes, that's all I can ever remember.
Ki Young Kwan or something close to that. We'll talk about him later. He's coming up.
Yeah.
All right, number 8 is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Ooh, good one.
This
Solid.
is absolutely one of my favorite comic book movies, Spider-Man movies, just movies in general. And sure, it features Miles Morales instead of Peter Parker. I'm a big Peter Parker fan. I don't care. They nail Spider-Man so hard in this one. I think it's just so incredibly well done. It's got one of my favorite and unfortunately one of the last Stan Lee cameos in it. The humor is so incredibly good that you can watch it anytime and still laugh. Like, there's still parts of that get to me. The heart of this movie actually connects between Miles and his dad, or I don't know why, but that Stan Lee scene just gets me. Probably because it is one of his last ones. I don't know. I really do like Across the Spider-Verse, but I think Into the Spider-Verse is just a more complete movie. It's just a better all-around package. It doesn't need to have a sequel. I'm glad that it does, and I'm looking forward to the third. It might be the best trilogy ever if they can nail the landing. But this movie, unlike Raiders or Indiana Jones, just stands alone. Like, there's no flip-flopping. Like, this just is the best Spider-Man movie and one of my absolute favorites. Like, I could watch this anytime.
I 100% agree with everything you're saying. I agree that it doesn't need a sequel. Glad it does. And I thought they did a great job with the sequel. This one is a very beloved movie to me because I remember watching this movie, going to movies in the park. And it was an opportunity to be with my community. And we went and saw this on a summer day with my kids, and I'll just never remember the moment. They were so into it. And it was the first time I finally got them to sit through a movie that I liked that was kind of on, they could get into. And it was one of the first times that I actually got to share a movie watching experience with my kids. It was a great movie. I love everything about it. It's super great. Probably going to make my top 20 list as well. Nice. I think it's the best Marvel movie ever made. Prove me wrong.
Ironically made by Sony.
Yeah, it's just so and for them to have the courage to go in such a vastly different direction as far as all of those other Marvel and superhero movies of the time.
Yeah.
And then to absolutely nail it and just blow everybody's hair back with that was great. Yeah. Soundtrack, visual effects, voiceover.
Oh, the animation's on a whole new level. Like, literally changed the game.
Oh yeah. I play many of those songs are in my playlist that I stream to all the time. They're fantastic.
Yeah. I saw the sequel, just a super short story. I saw the sequel with a friend and a friend of a friend, and the friend of a friend, like opening day, like maybe second day, anyway, opening weekend. And the friend of the friend would not shut up during the movie. And it was one of those audiences where everybody's just like laughing and like, woo, and like just cheering. And I'm just like, for the first like 15 minutes, I just wanted to lose my mind and just like sit anywhere else in the theater. But once I kind of got into it, and I was just like, no, this is just a fun movie, and people are just having a good time with it. Like, stop being pissed off at people for just enjoying it.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't talking about, like, what do you want to go get dinner afterwards? Like, he was just enjoying the movie, and it ended up being one of my favorite movie-going experiences. Like, it actually added to it. So this, when I saw it the second time with my family, and it was a dead quiet movie theater, it was kind of like, You know what I mean? Like, the laughter and all the jokes made it so much better than just, like, the next time I watched it, like,
you had a similar experience to the second movie as I did with the first one, because I got involved with the community when I watched it. I was surrounded by people at the park, and we were all talking and getting into it, and there was lots going on, and somebody's kid would fall down, and I'd help them pick up their kid or something like that, and there were interruptions and things. But luckily, I'd already seen the movie once anyway, so it didn't bother me too much. But yeah, just fantastic, feel good movie.
Yeah. Ironic that Cleaning Agent just showed up here. Hi, by the way. My number 7 is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. There we go. We finally got one.
I hate Eternal Sunshine. I don't know why so many people like it. I did not have fun with that. It was depressing. I felt like I had to struggle to get through it. It felt like it was going nowhere the whole time. And when it finally ended, I was just glad it was over. I do not like that movie at all.
All right, I will counter that by saying it's watching it again recently, because I saw it like when it first came out a couple of times, didn't watch it for like a decade, and then watched it I think twice semi-recently, like right around when Everything Everywhere All at Once came out. And it was one of those things where I was like, oh, like this I remember this couple being really sweet together. They're actually toxic AF. Like, they're actually horrendous to each other. And yet for some reason I'm still rooting for them. I still want them to get together. There's so many like little little fine touches to this movie where like they're getting there. Okay, so if anybody who doesn't know what this is I'm going to call it a love story, but that's not the right term for it. It's a breakup story, right, I guess, where a technology exists where you can actually have your mind erased, or little parts of your mind erased, so you can forget somebody. So if you're going through a tough breakup, you can just have them removed, and it'll kind of deal with that. So Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet are the stars of this movie, and like I say stars wholeheartedly because I think this is one of the best performances from either one of them. Kate Winslet is playing a very eccentric character, and she breaks up with him and gets her mind erased without letting him know. So he like approaches her like, what's going on? And she's like, who are you? Very, very weird. So he looks into the procedure, finds out what's going on, decides to get it himself. And the entire movie takes place, well, no, a vast majority of the movie takes place in his mind as they're going back through their relationship and deleting every little bit of it. And what's actually happening is he's kind of falling in love with her all over again, kind of remembering why he loved her, and going through these scenes where he's fighting like, no, I don't care that these memories hurt. I don't care that I'm sad because of them. These are the memories that made up my life. Like this woman and myself, like this is the life we had together. And for better or worse, I want to have these memories. These memories are worth fighting for. Like there's a couple of scenes where it's just heartbreaking because he's just like, let me save this. Let me save this one piece. Like I don't take everything else, but just let me save this one memory of her because it means so much to me. Even though the relationship itself went sour, and like there's something so strong in that, like, you can't keep things. Life is all about change. Everything changes over time. And sometimes you want to get rid of those things that are going to hurt you or leave you scarred. But everything that you've gone through in life makes you who you are. Whether it's like some of the bullying that he remembers as being a small child, whether it's falling in love with this woman and the thing going sour, the fact that he is like super socially awkward, but all of that is who makes him who he is. And so at the end of the movie, they're both mind wiped. They don't remember each other, but through circumstances I won't get into, they find the tapes of who they were before this. And so he finds Kate Winslet again, and they start flirting a little bit. They get those tapes, and they can hear them saying such awful things about each other, where they're like ripping into them in like a way that only somebody who's known somebody for a very long time can. Like really, really deep stuff. And they're like, I don't understand how I could hate you this much. Like, you seem amazing. I want to still be with you. And they're like, why? Like, this person on the tape who knows me doesn't like me at all, and that person is you. And he's like, I don't care. I can't explain it. Some part of me is still drawn to you. I still want to be with you. And if it hurts me, so be it, because sometimes there's beauty in pain. Sometimes it's okay. I don't know. It's a really tough one, and I can tell I'm not selling you on it, but I just absolutely love some parts of this movie. And some of the memories that he goes through where he's like, he is a full-grown man, but he's hiding under the kitchen table thinking that he's a little kid. Or they're in a bookstore at one point and like he's talking to her, but you can see everything around them is slowly getting wiped out because none of it matters. The only thing that matters is the person you're there in time with. So you just see it subtly at first, like the titles on the book start going away. So they know they're in a bookstore. They understand where they're at, but it doesn't matter that, what aisle they're in or anything like that. What matters is that he's talking to Clementine. It's just some of the photography is really well done. I just absolutely love this movie. It is an indie movie. It is more of an art house movie. I totally get it. But
I can appreciate
it's so good.
it for the scenes and the sequences and everything you're saying. I think for me, it was emotionally hard for me to watch people as they are clearly making a mistake because, like you said, those painful memories, they're a part of you. You shouldn't be letting go of them. And I just, the idea that someone would mind wipe themselves just offends me, I guess. And so watching that play out, and I guess I kind of agree actually with the premise of the movie, but having to sit through it and see it just bothers me at a deep level. I did not like seeing people erasing these things from their mind. I can agree with everything you're saying, but I don't want to have to go through that.
That's
again.
fair.
I don't want to have to see that again because it so emotionally bothered me.
I don't know. I think I was just watching you. I don't know that we were actually talking, but I feel like a couple of days ago, you mentioned something on stream where you were like, I don't like listening to sad music. Why would anybody want to listen to something that makes them sad? Was that you?
Yeah,
Am I misplaced that?
Yeah.
That kind of checks out for this movie. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a feel-good movie. And I'm not saying that I want to get depressed and cut myself, but like, sometimes you're just in a mood and something like this just hits.
I think you're right. And you know what? There is a time and a place for sad music. There is a time and a place to be in your feels. I just don't like being there, probably because I've battled with depression for so long. And this is a movie where people are trying to escape from depression that was brought on by such a painful experience and such strong emotional attachment to one another. And I just felt like they were going about it the wrong way. I think you need to accept the things that happen to you in life, accept when things go wrong, and accept these circumstances that they are in and go through, and not delete them, and you can appreciate them. And then in the end, it felt like it was all for nothing because they're just going to start over again, but they don't even remember the mistakes that they made. If they remembered the mistakes that they made and they accepted the flaws in each other and moved past it, they could do something to repair that relationship. But I don't know. I guess I can appreciate it for all the reasons that you're saying and what Chad is saying about it in there too. I'm not saying that this was poorly done or that people shouldn't watch it. For me, it was just painful to watch, I think.
And that's totally fair. Again, like, this is not a recommendation per se. This is movies I enjoy.
Via 10 movies.
There you go. I mean, in fairness, like we got through 14 movies before we found one that we totally disagreed on, and it was one of the better discussions we've had so far, so I'll take it. The next one I pair with Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind for reasons that I don't know that I'll be able to fully explain. I will try if you're just like, what? This is the newest movie on my list. Yeah, the newest movie on my list. Academy Award, like, just absolutely destroyer. It took every award that year. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. I thoroughly love this movie. I watched it actually with Jason Alexander, Jay Alexander in the chat. I watched it with him and another buddy in movie theater, and I was in tears. Like me and another guy were just like dying laughing the entire time. I watched into this, and I strongly suggest don't watch the trailer for this movie. If anything I say gets you intrigued, go watch it as blind as you possibly can. Don't know anything about it. Just turn it on and be like, what? Like, just let it wash over you. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything about this.
I went in blind as well, and I felt it was an amazing. I was so blown away because I didn't know what to expect, and I'm really glad I didn't because it was very different. It was a different movie.
So
I have trouble even explaining this movie to anybody. It was just amazing, and I never would have even watched it had Netflix, which knows me better than myself, continually recommended it as a movie that I would like. Yeah. And finally I was like, oh, fine, I'll click on it. And I watched it. I was so glad I did.
I watched it with my friends, laughed the entire time, just thought it was absolutely hilarious. Was supposed to go on a date night with my wife the next night to see Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and I was like, if you trust me, let's go watch this movie. She's like, you just saw it. I'm like, I do not care. So I actually saw this movie in theaters 2 nights in a row, only time I've ever done that. And the second time watching it, it's still funny, but a lot more of the emotional beats really, really clicked for me. It's an incredibly, like, it's very funny, it's very silly, it's very out there, but it's also an incredible emotional movie of this journey with a mother trying to reconnect with her husband, trying to reconnect with her father, trying to reconnect with her daughter is the big one. And I was watching this movie with my wife, who I'm a little bit nervous because this is going out to YouTube, but doesn't have the greatest relationship with her mother, about a story of a mother and daughter trying to reconnect and whatnot. And some of these parts, like, I was sitting there in the theater just like, I was not thinking about this from your perspective. I hope this is okay. And she loved it too, so it was fine. But it was just one of those like, oh man, it's got my sense of humor. It's got my sci-fi. It's got my emotional aspect. Like, the music is maybe the only thing where I'm like, oh, it doesn't have any like really good banger tracks that I ever listen to or go back to.
I don't remember the music at all, so I guess
it's serviceable, but it's forgettable.
Fine. However, everything else in that movie, there is just so many opportunities to relate that it really drug me in, and I was pleased by that film.
Yeah, everything everywhere all it's okay. So why do I connect this to Eternal Sunshine? Let's see if I can even explain it that makes sense to myself. I think
how do you connect that?
So they're both independent movies. They're both incredibly dramatic with silly elements to them. They're both low budget, high quality, and they both have like sci-fi elements that aren't really sci-fi. They're things that don't exist, but they're not. You're not traveling to outer space. You're not meeting aliens, that kind of thing. I mean, you might as well be in everything everywhere. So I say, like, when I show
parallel dimensional travel,
I would argue they don't.
It's pretty hard sci-fi. Yeah, that's true.
I
don't want to spoil it too much for other people.
We could talk off air. Anyways,
right.
So I like to watch all the Oscar movies, or at least the top, like the best pictures before Oscar night. My wife and parents try to keep up with me, but most of the time schedules don't quite align. So I couldn't shut up about everything everywhere. So my mom decided she wanted to watch it. I was like, I don't know if this is your jam. So I decided to sit through Eternal Sunshine with her first, to be like, if you can hang with this, maybe you can go that extra step. But if this is too far for you, there's no chance. So she watched Eternal Sunshine, enjoyed it well enough. I don't think it's one that she's ever going to go back to. And then did watch Everything Everywhere. She's like, okay, like I understand kind of where you were going, but I don't know. I don't know why I connect those two movies, but I think both of them are so out there in a way that no other movies are, that they kind of get pulled together by having nothing else around them. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but
they are very unique movies, aren't they?
Yeah. Moving on to number 5, we touched on is Princess Bride.
Fantastic film. It would make my top 10 list for sure.
Yay. One of the ones we watched as a kid on repeat constantly.
Iconic. So many lines that people remember.
Quote to this day.
Super entertaining. Yes.
Yeah. Watched it with my kids. My kids enjoy it. Not as much as I'd like them to, but I mean, they do enjoy it.
I think Sen Raven says it. It's a perfect movie. I cannot think of anything that is wrong with that movie. There's nothing I would ever change about it. It's amazing.
Yeah. Now, I will say, I was not planning on talking about this. I just read a post on, I don't know, Facebook or something, where they were saying, like, you should never remake Princess Bride. Like, that's one of the ones you just leave completely alone. Unless you bring back Fred Savage, have him telling the story. So he's playing the grandpa role, telling it to his daughter or granddaughter. And because it's now taking place in 2024, then you kind of get the, like, everything he's saying, everything he's reading out of the book is verbatim. But then when she interrupts, it'll be in different parts. The actors can be different because it's her imagining them. So it makes sense that she would be picturing people from like modern times, not from back then. And you'd have basically the same story, but with like little bits of flavor just changed differently, stuff like that. Maybe like where she interrupts, what she likes, what she doesn't like, things like that. That could actually be pretty interesting if you had to remake
his daughter, and she actually likes the kissing scenes or something. That
exactly.
would be kind of a cool touch. I'd be willing to. Well, of course I'd watch it if they remade. Of course I'm going to watch it. So I don't know why they don't, because I mean, so many people would watch it just to see how it holds up to the original. I like that idea, though. I think I could get on board. I don't know if it would beat the original. I don't know if you could beat the original, but I think that you could produce something that people could enjoy.
I don't think you'll ever beat the original for us, but I bet you beat it for our kids.
Oh yeah, you could. The kids could enjoy it more, because my kids were like, they watched it and they were like, okay, but they were probably too young. I bet if I watched it again with them now, they might enjoy it more. In fact, my son got a little bit freaked out by the screeching eels.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, moving on to number 4. I feel like this will go well, but I could be wrong. I don't know how to describe it, so we're just going to jump right in. Edge of Tomorrow. Tom Cruise and John Krasinski's wife, whose name I'm blanking on.
I don't remember her name. No, very much enjoyed this. I'm kind of a little surprised this is making your top 10 list.
It's just one of those ones that... Emily Blunt, thank you so much. It's one of those movies that is so rewatchable. The sci-fi is just fun. It's not... It's kind of time travel-y, but like it's one of those ones where like, okay, you've got your own rules and we'll just kind of go along with it. So be it. Like, the science doesn't have to make sense because they just tell you what happens and you just kind of ride that wave. I like Tom Cruise more than most. I think this is... random. I like Tom Cruise more than most. I think this is one of the movies where he's kind of given liberty to just kind of have fun with it while still being the action star. You know what I mean? Like, he's kind of allowed to let loose a little bit more than like an Ethan Hunt can. I like that he's got the charm, but it really doesn't work for him in this movie. Like, he keeps trying to use it and people are just like, shut up, grunt. Like, move on and do your thing.
Right.
It's, again, this list is not in any particular order, so this could very well be like 10, right? Like, this is not actually number 4 of my favorite movies of all time, but it's definitely on the top 10 somewhere. This is definitely one that I wanted to bring up. I just have a great time every time I watch this one. Is it one of the best movies ever made? Probably not, but it's fun every single time.
I can agree with it being a fun movie. Like I said, I'm big on sci-fi. I love, there's been a recent move towards these battle suits, these exoskeleton suits. We saw that in the other Matt Damon movie, where they got the spaceship that they're always trying to get up to.
Elysium?
Elysium. And it's visually stunning. I love the whole Groundhog's Day thing. You always hear people say Groundhog's Day when you talk about this movie, because that's the idea. He's reliving the same day over and over and over.
Yep.
I thought it was kind like, anytime you can do the same day over hundreds, if not thousands of times in a movie and you don't get bored, not for 1 second was I bored with this movie, that was great. My only problem with this, and it's almost a benefit, was that I hate Tom Cruise's character in it until by the end of the movie, I'm okay with him. I don't like him by the end of the movie, but he's changed, and that's always important when your character develops over the course of the film. He's changed, and that's cool. I feel like they did kind of try the romance between the two, right? A little bit, and it doesn't really work. It didn't go anywhere. Like you said, he tries to be charming or whatnot, and it fails. And so there was no chemistry between the two, and I guess that's a good thing. But
he definitely tries to pursue her, and she doesn't want any part of it. She's just so focused on the mission. And even like there are parts where he's like, no, like, we've been here 1,000 times. I can't get you past this field. You die here every single time. We've tried everything we can. Let's just go a different direction. Let's just make a life where we can. And she's like, no, like, the mission is what's important. We have to. Right. And I think she does like him. Like, I think there's definitely some romance happening behind, like, not behind the scenes, but like, I think there is some sort of a romance happening there, but she's so committed to the mission. She's like, it doesn't matter. We have to find a way to save humanity, because otherwise what's the point of living? Like, everybody on the planet's going to die soon if we don't figure this out.
I am surprised that this makes your top 10 list. It's definitely, I would give this a top 25 for me.
Fair.
And I'm big into science fiction. I think what it was is that I was kind of miffed by Tom Cruise. His performance in it, maybe it was the character writing or something. I couldn't relate with his character at all until by the very end of it. I was just kind of like, I was just kind of like, oh, dude, get over yourself already. Like, you know, and it frustrated me. And they didn't bring in that moment where you get to understand his reservations until way late in the movie. And then finally, I'm kind of on board with him, but still not 100% on this character. Everything else about the movie was amazing. Like you said, this is a super fun movie. Definitely should see this movie if you haven't. Entertaining from start to finish. Like I said, they're playing the same day over thousands of times, and you never get bored with it at all. You're on the edge of your seat the whole time.
Yeah.
It's really incredible, kind of funny too. You're always interested to see how he's going to change things each time he goes through an iteration.
Yeah. I don't know. We won't spend too much long here, but I get what you're saying about his character, because he is supposed to be kind of a coward,
kind of a douchebag.
Yeah,
kind of a douchebag, right?
Like he's playing to type, right? Like a lot of people think that's who Tom Cruise is, and he's like, all right, well, let's just lean into it for this one. I don't know. He didn't bother me.
I think it would have been fine if he was this douchebag character, but I needed to glimpse something earlier on and go, hey, there might be a reason he's a douchebag. There might be this shred.
Not everybody needs a
I
reason.
can connect with. I just needed a glimpse of it a little earlier in the movie, but you don't get that until he goes to the bar at the end. Like, he finally has enough, and instead of trying to stick with the mission, he just makes a hard left turn and drives to a bar to get drunk. And then you hear him talk, and you see what's going on in his mind, and you see the pressure he's under. And then I was like, okay, I found that shred of relatability to this person, and it was okay, but it took a long time to get there. So it was this point where I wanted him to meet the girl because she seemed like a badass, and I wanted somebody to root for, and it took a while to get to her too. So It was just that I kind of had to grind through that relatability aspect. Everything else about this movie was amazing, so it was good.
Cool. I forgot to throw out another trivia question, so we'll just do one really quickly right now. We're talking about Edge of Tomorrow. In Edge of Tomorrow, Emily Blunt's character has 2 nicknames. Give me either one of them. Okay, so Senator Raven's talking about they're discussing making a sequel to this movie. I'm actually very happy they didn't. I think
me too. I don't think it deserves a sequel.
It's fine the way it is.
Yep.
All right. Number 3.
If you made a sequel, I would like a whole new recasting. I'd like it to take place with somebody else in a completely different way. And I don't know where there's room for a sequel with this. I don't know how they would pull that off.
Yeah. So. Thank you so much, Zemo. Zemo just subscribed for his 2nd month in a row, and I appreciate that immensely.
Thank you, Zemo.
Angel of Death is very close, Daddy O'Rourke, but it's not quite right. Okay, so the top 3 were instant came to me. Like, this is, like, as I said, like, my top 10, even my top 20, it's kind of like, Lady of Verdun, man, you are so close. My top 20, most of them were kind of interchangeable. My top 3, like, these are my top 3 movies. I think this is the correct order for them. It might change a little bit, but none of them would drop out of 3. Okay. Right? So, like, this is my official.
Do you have like a 1 though? Is one of them your 1?
Yeah. I think so.
Okay, so save that for last. Let's hear about 2 and 3.
Okay.
2 and 3 in any order.
Full Metal Bitch is one of them. Sen Raven. Well done. This one, I think we've discussed this in the past, at least a little bit. I like dialogue. Nobody writes dialogue like Aaron Sorkin. Number 3 on my list is A Few Good Men. This is, I didn't realize I was going to talk about Tom Cruise 2 movies in a row. That was kind of an accident, but so be it. This is Aaron Sorkin's first. He did it actually as a play first and then adapted it into a movie. It is infinitely rewatchable. Like, this goes right up there with something like Shawshank Redemption, where, like, back when TBS was a thing, if you see this on TV, like, your day's just over. Like, you know what you're doing for the next 2 hours. Like, this is...
Yeah, that was The Godfather for me.
Yeah, it's just one of those movies, like, when you see it, you're just like, oh, this is what I'm doing now. Cool. Yep. This is also my dad's favorite movie, and I'm not going to try and pretend that that doesn't have a huge impact on how high it is on my ranking as well. So it was definitely one that was playing constantly in our household. It is quoted in our family way more than it probably should be. But this is one of those ones where, like, I could put it on and, like, do the dishes or just have it in the background, or I could put it on and sit down and watch it, and I'll be captivated either way. If you've never seen this movie, do yourself a favor and check it out. It is absolutely phenomenal. And, I mean, I know Aaron Sorkin gets criticized for having Sorkinisms, where he kind of repeats similar things or tones over and over again. But again, this is his first one, so he doesn't have any of those you're not aware of them yet when you're watching them. It all felt so incredibly fresh the first time. It is the story for anybody who has no idea. Oh, what's the movie? Sorry, it was A Few Good Men. Apparently we had an ad break there for a second. It's Tom Cruise as a JAG officer who has to defend these two Navy men? That doesn't sound right. Marines, maybe? Yeah, Marines. They're definitely Marines. Never mind. Has to defend these two Marines who were essentially following orders. But were they? And that's like the whole plot. It's like a courtroom drama on a military base. It's got amazing performances from Jack Nicholson, Tommy Cruise. Tommy Cruise? That's something I've never called him before. Okay, we're on with that one apparently. Kevin Bacon, Demi Moore. You've got a look on your face like you want to disagree with me so hard, but you're not because it's the top 3.
No, here's the thing. I know the movie. I know the premise of the movie and I know the ending of the movie, but I cannot honestly remember watching the movie. Like, I'm pretty sure that I have basically pieced this movie together because it is such an acclaimed film. And so I put it on my list to circle back around and watch it again because I think I've seen it. I know the movie. Like, I know all about it, right? You Can't Handle the Truth. Like, we all know this movie. But I can't remember actually watching it from beginning to end. And I think that's what happened. I think when I was younger, I came in halfway through and finished the film. Because I remember the ending and I know how it goes. So I'm going to circle back around and watch A Few Good Men from beginning to end. And then I'll give you my report. I'm putting that on my homework list.
I was going to say, like, if any of these are on your homework list, this has got to be the one. Shawshank Redemption was kind of what you're describing for me, where I'd seen every scene of the movie probably multiple times, but I'd never seen it credits to credits.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it was like until seriously late in life. And I was watching it, I was like, okay, I know I've seen this. I recognize this scene. I recognize this scene. I recognize this scene. I just don't know that I've ever put it in a DVD player and just like hit play and just watched it for 2 hours straight. It was just one of those, like, it's on TBS and you watch this scene, you watch that scene. Like, I don't know. It's interesting that you say that was this movie for you. Like, I've definitely done that with others, but number 2, I feel like we're talking about this duo quite a bit, but this is obviously their best work. Number 2 is Good Will Hunting with Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Robin Williams.
How about them apples?
Just an absolutely incredible movie. Heartwarming. I love the dynamic between Matt Damon and Robin Williams as he is going through therapy and just like kind of
powerful
figuring out how to get his
when
life
he finally
out.
breaks, right? When he finally breaks, it's a powerful scene. Excellent acting in that film. Yeah. Really, really top notch.
I've always enjoyed this movie, but as somebody who has gone through some stuff and has been to therapy, it hits a little bit differently now. I'm not going to say like a whole lot different. Like, it was always a powerful movie, but it's definitely one of those things where like, this is so good. I don't know. And like, as I said, like if you put Matt Damon and Ben Affleck together, like they have such a natural chemistry together. I will watch almost anything those guys are in if they're in it together. I think this movie is so incredibly well written, well acted, well performed. It's just one of those easy, again, it's like Few Good Men. Like I could put this on, listen to it, watch it, whatever, and just be completely captivated the entire time.
I think it's solid. Probably not going to make my top 20, I don't think. I have no problem with it being very high on your list. I think it's a great choice. I think it has a lot of aspects. Like I said, I have this kind of love-hate relationship with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck where sometimes I was all about them and sometimes I just never wanted to watch them again. And I think Good Will Hunting was at the end of one of those good runs for me where I really appreciated them and everything, but I was kind of like, I'm kind of over watching this duo now. I want to see them separately and do other roles and everything. For me, that movie was about Matt Damon and Robin Williams. That's what really made that movie for me, and less so Ben Affleck as his friend who's kind of there.
Ben Affleck has a very small part in this movie, let's be clear. Like,
right, yeah. So for me, it was definitely that part with Robin Williams. Like I said, that scene where he finally breaks just was so powerful, and I'll never forget that scene. Like it hits you, you know?
Yeah.
And I think as a man, and we watch something like that, and I too have things in my life, went to therapy and stuff like that. So I can relate. I kind of have a feeling I know what you're talking about there, and it was great. It was a great movie. Just not going to make my top 20 is all. I think there's just other things that am more in love with than that. But very
Nope.
powerful, very solid pick.
That's totally fair. It's hard for me to criticize other people for their opinions on things, right? Like, unless it's hurting other people in some way. But if it's just a movie that you like that I didn't, I can't tell you you're wrong for enjoying a movie.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what was, like, Benny had that quote on YouTube recently, like, "Oh, thank you so much. I'll definitely change my opinion now because of you." It was just like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, like I said, I've only had one solid thumbs down so far, and even after discussing that movie with you, I feel like I even I've learned more about that, and I think I even have a better appreciation for Spotless Mind now because we talked about it, which is kind of weird. I always just was like disgusted that anybody could like that, and now, you know, seeing what Chad is saying about it, I'm like, yeah, that's true. I can see that. So I felt bad watching it, but now I'm appreciating it more. You know, talking about these movies with you actually it helps me to digest what I've already seen and everything. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with you putting Good Will Hunting at the top of your list. I think that's great. I'm wondering
number 2.
if you, I'm wondering if you have a personal story that I'm not asking you to share, but I'm wondering if you have a personal story which makes that movie more impactful for you, because I know I have a personal story that makes that movie impactful for me. And so it was because of that, some of those scenes in that movie are absolutely stellar, and some of the rest of it was just like, okay, this is entertaining, and that's where it lies for me.
I will not be getting into why I had to seek therapy or anything like that. That's just not something I want out in the world, right? That's for me.
It's not what we're here for, right?
say, while I was in therapy, there definitely were times where I was breaking down, right? Like I was full tears in the doctor's office. And I'm not ashamed to admit that. I think there is a nasty stigmatism in this country or in the world about therapy, and if you do that, it makes you weaker or whatever. And I don't agree with that in any way, shape, or form. I think it's something there. If you need it, you should absolutely seek it out.
And if you watch that movie, he feels like there is a weakness in exploring himself and opening up to Robin Williams. And when he finally breaks and realizes, like, and I've been through a situation, like, I thought that too. I didn't want to open up to a therapist. I thought that was a weakness and whatnot. And so when you finally start to realize that it's okay to open up and explore your weaknesses and talk about them, it doesn't make you less of a person. It makes you stronger. And seeing that unfold in that sequence was huge for me. It was huge.
I can remember, I don't know if this is weird or not to go into. We're going real deep on some things here.
Go ahead, man. It's your show.
It's our show. Thank you very much.
I'm gonna let you do the editing and all. So you want to call it our show, sure, but you're doing the editing.
Well, that's why there is no editing. I just throw a freaking thumbnail on top and move on with my life. There's too many other things to work on. I don't know. Yeah, maybe we'll just leave that one alone. When you asked if there's a specific story, things came to mind, but not necessarily things that I want to go super deep on in front of a live audience.
Fair enough.
Okay, so moving on to my number 1 movie. You asked if there was a clear number 1, and every time somebody asks me about, like, what's your top 5 favorite movies, this is the one that jumps to mind. That being said...
This is number 1?
This is number 1.
This is number 1. This is the drum roll.
Yeah, because you were like, oh, this is your top of your list. I'm like, no, it's not. This is number 2.
This is Dan right here. We're getting to it. This is brass tacks right now.
I can't wait for the judgment on this one.
Set the stage, man. Dude, this is a long time coming. It took us a while to get through these 20. So
well, that's why I was like, maybe we just do like me one week and you the next week or something.
Yeah, I'm here for it. Let's go.
Okay, I will preface this by saying this movie came out when I was in college, and it was one of the few movies that me and my buddies had on DVD. So it saw a lot of rotation, and there's a huge nostalgia factor to this one. I'm not saying it's a bad movie by any stretch, but it's one of those movies where most people would watch once and be like, that was fun, and move on with their lives. But this is college for me, right? Like, this is one of the movies where I watch and I think about laughing at it with my friends and stuff like that, right? Like, this one just hits totally different, and I fully recognize because of that. Judgment incoming. My number one movie, anytime somebody asks me, the first thing that comes to my mind, I want to say is, I don't know the year, is Snatch.
Snatch, really?
Brad Pitt and Jason Statham and
The pikey accent,
the
huh?
pikey accent movie. I love this movie so much. I can quote scenes from it. Like, it's one of like, it's right up there with like Princess Bride or Monty Python, where like I've seen it so many times, but unlike those other two, this is one that I would just put on for fun by myself, whether I'm showing it to somebody else, I have no idea. But this is one where I just think it's like top to bottom, just amazing. I quote it all the time and nobody ever gets the references where like we'll be waiting for somebody to be like, 2 minutes Turkish, 5 minutes Turkish. It was 2 minutes, 5 minutes ago. Periwinkle Blue.
Snatch is excellent. Snatch is excellent.
Yeah. The soundtrack is fantastic. I mean, it's more techno-y than I normally listen to, but still it's got some great hits on there that I listen to semi-regularly. Like, I don't know, man.
It's also got a raw, gritty feel to it that I really dig.
Yeah. It's also like there's a lot of movies where they have like a cast of characters, there's a word for it, like a large cast of characters, where they've all got their own storylines and they kind of crisscross and overweave. And I feel like this is one of the ones that does it the best, where they don't have to like meet up and have like an ensemble cast. It's got an ensemble cast where they're all got their own little stories. Each story is unique and interesting. They do crisscross quite a bit, but at no point does it feel super forced like you get with some movies, like say Crash or something, where you're just like, okay, I get it. It's about racism. It's a spiritual successor to Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. I wouldn't say it's a sequel. But yeah, it's definitely the same director. It's got the same kind of feel to it. I just think it's significantly more polished and rewatchable than Lock, Stock is. And unfortunately, I haven't really seen anything from Guy Ritchie since that I've enjoyed nearly as much. Which makes me wonder how much of it is, you know, the college experience seeping in. But I don't know. I'm shocked that there's no pushback on this. Everybody in the audience seems to be, I mean, that I've seen at least, is like, oh, that's a good movie so far. You said you enjoyed it. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'll take it.
He did Sherlock Holmes and Aladdin?
Yeah.
Wow.
We don't talk about Aladdin.
Yeah, let's not talk about Aladdin. Wow. He's on, let's see, The Gentleman.
I didn't mind The Gentleman. That's probably the other one that I actually enjoyed, but it's not
King
anywhere
Arthur,
close.
Legend of the Sword was forgettable. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Okay. I have no problem with you being in love with Snatch. I think this is a perfectly acceptable
That's a clip.
top tier film. Not my pick, right? I think Snatch could definitely be on my top 20 list. I think there is so much to be said about this movie, entertainment-wise, the things that occur, the way they go about it. But man, and you've said this several times along this list, you really like the dialogue. This movie has such amazingly fun dialogue. You need to watch this movie multiple times so you don't miss things. There's so much going on with what they're saying and how fast they say it, and those accents are amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great pick, man. I think I don't think chat should be upset with you at all, and I don't see anybody giving you crap for it at all.
And
so I think that's
nobody seems to, which I'm a little surprised at, but totally fine, totally on board with.
Dan, I think your list is amazing. I think it's great. You even are pulling me around to Spotless Mind, which I didn't think anybody could do. I think I can appreciate the film more than I did, though I still don't want to see it again.
Totally fair.
I feel like I know you better after hearing your list. I think there's some fantastic picks. And Snatch coming in at number 1 really says a lot to me. Like, this one came out of left field for me, but I'm after all of these movies and talking about dialogue and stuff, I feel you on this. So I think that's pretty good.
Nice. Well, that was the point of the list, right? Is kind of just like we've been talking for quite some time, but this is our time to get together, talk about movies and whatnot, and we were like, I don't actually know what kind of movies you really enjoy. So it was our chance to kind of break down a list. And so the next time we get together, hopefully Brian will have his top 20 movies. Kind of, I don't know, take whatever format you want. We didn't really discuss what the top 20 had to be. So for mine, for people who are just coming in now, 20 through 11 was just like movies I really enjoy, but not necessarily my absolute favorites of all time. And then 10 through 1 are like, no, these are actually, I think, my top 10 movies.
I'm kind of worried that my list will embarrass me. I'm kind of worried because though many of your movies could be on my top 20 list, I think I have a pretty different selection. What I really like, though, is that every time we bring up one of these movies and it leads us to talk about other movies and it leads us to tell stories about ourselves. And
that's the show, buddy.
I get to know you better. And chat jumping in here and stuff.
All right. So there it is. Brian Run 7 will be back in 2 weeks with his top 20. We'll do this exact same thing, but I'll let him do way more talking. But next week, I'm going to be joined by Cleaning Agent, who I hope is still in the chat. I asked Cleaning Agent to come up with his own top 5. He can make whatever kind of list he wants. I kind of was suggesting like maybe give me like your top 5, not necessarily that is your favorite of all time, but like recommendations for me. But I also just left it open to him. He can figure out whatever top 5 he wants to come on with. So that's going to be next Thursday. Brian here is going to be back the Thursday after that. And then after that, we're going to have top 5 with my brother as we go over our top 5 shocking or twist endings to movies. So definitely spoilers on that one, but you got a couple of weeks to prepare for that. Other than that, I think we are good here. Oh, sorry. If anybody has an idea for a title for this thing, that would be amazing. You can leave it in my Discord. You can let it know here. I kind of like something really simple. I don't think... The one that I've been bouncing around, I can't get it out of my head, is The Lobby. Like, hey guys, welcome to The Lobby. It doesn't quite work. It doesn't quite make sense, but I like something just really like short and clean like that. The name right now is Mongooli's Movie Show. I don't love it. It was literally just something quick and easy to do. But especially
I like that we're dropping the handles and going with our original names now. I kind of like that. Yeah.
Especially once I can actually remember to do it the first time.
Yeah, and like the best thing I could come up with was like Dan and Brian watch movies or something, like, you know, like,
because we're creatives.
Yeah, we this is why we watch movies. We're not creative enough to come up with something good ourselves, right?
Absolutely. All right, man. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to thank everybody for hanging out with us tonight. That was so much fun to go over and chat with everyone. And we'll see you in next week.
All right, bye, everybody.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.